Needless to say, the 2018 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers was an unmitigated disaster. It started off bad, then it seemed like the team was really starting to figure things out, put things together, and then they collapsed late in the year. Outside of that victory over the Patriots, it's just the Steelers going to do what the Steelers going to do, specifically under Mike Tomlin, to absolutely no surprise of mine. And here is a team full of, in theory, stars, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, a head coach that's won a Super Bowl, led the team to another one, a number one wide receiver who might be the best receiver in all of football, a number two wide receiver that's as good as any number two wide receiver in football, and the Steelers are going to be at home watching the playoffs. If you thought last year was bad, that divisional round loss at home to the Jaguars, what do you call this year? They didn't even make it to the dance. Didn't even make it. And I don't know about you, but week 17 going into it, there was something a little funny to me about this whole Antonio Brown thing, and all of a sudden the report coming out that he wasn't going to play. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Your team really needs this win. To have any shot at the playoffs whatsoever, you must win. And you hadn't heard that much serious talk about Antonio Brown's Week 17 status being that much up in the air, and then all of a sudden it was, and all of a sudden he's not playing. What the hell is going on here? Well, we found out. In a season where you're dealing with the distraction that was Le'Veon Bell's contract situation, to where he ultimately sat out the entire year, you got Big Ben backing up the bus, can't wait to throw others under the bus, showing absolutely zero leadership. The defensive coaching staff led by Keith Butler finding ways to screw things up time after time after time. And then, of course, Mike Tomlin finding ways to screw up things time after time after time, because that's what Mike Tomlin does. This was like the perfect cap, the cherry on the crap sundae that was this 2018 Steelers season. Apparently, Antonio Brown didn't miss the game because he was hurt. He missed the game because it was a coaching decision, because he got into it with somebody at practice during the week, a very heated argument. As we later apparently found out, it reportedly was Big freaking Ben. So in your biggest game of the year that you got to have, in the lead up, the build up to the week, you've got a wide receiver reportedly in the wrong here, going after the quarterback, getting all types of pissy and frustrated and pissed off, going off, and being nowhere to be found. And then on top of that, leaving the stadium at halftime. So with the team season on the line, he wasn't even there. Wasn't even there. So now it begs the question, and I posted this on Twitter yesterday, about whether or not it's time for the Steelers to consider trading Antonio Brown. And then we find out today, apparently Antonio Brown has requested a trade. Look, I am not about to sit here and lay all of the problems of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Antonio Brown, because that is inherently unfair to him and the magnificent player that he is. That does not deal with the incompetence at times from the coaching staff, the defensive coordinator, and specifically the head coach, Mike Tomlin. You see this team consistently show and demonstrate a lack of discipline and focus at critical times. You see this team year in and year out go on the road and lose to really crappy bad teams, because that's what Mike Tomlin coach teams do. You have a quarterback showing absolutely zero leadership, who, when he's not faking an injury to try and get people to think about how tough he is and talk about what a warrior he is, when he's not sitting there assaulting women, allegedly, he's throwing teammates under the bus saying he can sit there in public and talk shit about the things they do. Not wanting to talk about Antonio Brown being a number one wide receiver, criticizing guy for running the wrong route and this and that. Big Ben is a problem. Le'Veon Bell obviously was a problem. His dumbass misplayed his hand and decided to sit out the entirety of the season. All of this kind of coming about at the last freaking minute. It's not just an Antonio Brown thing. But when you look at it, Le'Veon Bell, he gone. He was enough of a distraction this year to the point where you said, oh my God, wait, James Conner's producing just as well, if not better. You don't need him. You most certainly don't need that cancer in the locker room that was Le'Veon Bell. So he's gone. The Steelers brass, for some reason, is stuck on Mike Tomlin for reasons that are unbeknownst to me. Loyalty is one thing. Stubbornness and stupidity in the face of overwhelming logic that says, this guy is screwing up your window of opportunity to win a championship, you idiotic Rooney family. Clearly they're not idiots because of the number of Super Bowls they've won. But in this particular case, they are being stubbornly stupid and idiotic. Yes, they are. You went from championship game to divisional round to not even making the playoffs. How the hell do you think you're trending in the right direction here? But since they seem stuck on Mike Tomlin, he's not going anywhere. Where you could argue he might be the single biggest problem, he's not going anywhere. That's not changing. And as far as Big Ben, until he finally decides to hold up and make good on his threats to retire, he's not going anywhere either. So that leaves you Antonio Brown. And one of the challenges here is, do you really want to trade away an elite player, a potential future Hall of Famer in the peak of his career? Big cap number or not, doesn't matter. This guy has been great for you for a number of years. He has produced at a high level. Those types of guys do not grow on trees. And even though the Pittsburgh Steelers have had good success finding wide receivers later in the draft, Antonio Brown, 195th pick, 6th round, 2010. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2nd round pick last year. Hell, for all we know, James Washington could be the next guy in the fold there in the future. You still don't want to get rid of them when they're like this. But this could be one of these clear cases of addition by subtraction. Because for all the talent that the Steelers have, and they do have plenty of talent on both sides of the ball, the simple fact of the matter is something's off. And if you're not going to change the head coach who's off, and you can't change the quarterback who is also off in terms of his leadership dynamics, then you have to look where else you can go. The Le'Veon Bell headache is gone. The only one left is Antonio Brown. And when you get to the point where he's throwing a bitch fit the week of your biggest game of the season, then he leaves the stadium at halftime, I'm sorry. That's enough for me. That's got to be the jump-off point for the Steelers. Yes, you would say in theory it sucks to get rid of a guy that is that talented. But for crying out loud, you've got to do something differently. If this window has not already slammed shut on you, it's going to shut on your fingers any time now. And what good will it do to have Antonio Brown if that's the case, when he is part of the problem from a chemistry and maturity standpoint? Remember the crap where he's recording Mike Tomlin's post-game speech in the locker room a year or two ago? That's that same Antonio Brown. Incredibly talented, but at times acts like a damn idiot and lacks any type of professional maturity at all. And it's a shame, too, because he's such a great talent, such a great player, such a great story. Walk-on, 6th round pick, all pro. I mean, that's the stuff dreams are made of. But if you're the Steelers, it doesn't matter whether he requested one or not. You need to figure out a way to get it done. One of the challenges is, when you look at his cap hits over the next couple of seasons, they're not small. It's damn near quarterback money for a wide receiver that's now on the wrong side of 30. How many teams are going to be lining up to eat that much cap space on a guy with some history of being a pain in the ass, a locker room headache, potentially a cancer? You think about that. Now, sure, you could find a team like maybe the 49ers being desperate enough, or the Jets, or the Colts, somebody like that being desperate enough. But then you have to come back to reality and say, how much is a team willing to give up for a guy like Antonio Brown with some of the baggage he brings in terms of his personality, in terms of his locker room antics, his on-the-field, off-the-field antics? How much are they really willing to give up to get him, especially to take on that type of cap hit? If you're the Steelers, I would think at this point the best you could probably do is a 2nd round pick, like a high 2nd round pick in the 2019 draft, and maybe another one in the 2020 draft. Now, if you're a team like the Colts, where you've got 2 2nd round picks this year because of the Darnold trade last year, You've got Andrew Luck. You've got a shit ton of cap space. You need somebody other than T.Y. Hilton in the pass game, especially assuming that Eric Ebron will come crashing back down to earth in 2019 and beyond. Antonio Brown is worth the call. That doesn't mean the Steelers want to deal him there. Doesn't mean they want to deal him in the division or, in this case, in the conference. But if that's where the best price comes from, they might have to do it. But if you're the 49ers too, crap. You need a difference maker. You need an impact guy. You foolishly sunk all that money into Jimmy G. Whenever he finally decides that he can actually stay healthy for a full season, even if he does, what's it going to matter? Because he ain't got shit around him other than George fucking Kittle. So he most certainly is worth a second-round pick in 2019. And from a 49ers standpoint, hell, he might be worth a first-round pick in 2020. Hell, if we want to get nuts here, let's get the Oakland Raiders involved. They got 3 first-round picks. They can afford to part with one of them for a guy the level of talent of Antonio Brown. But if Mike Tomlin can't handle him, John Gruden most certainly ain't going to be able to handle him. And the Raiders most certainly are not going to want that type of headache or pain in the ass, I wouldn't think. So there's going to be a challenge there in terms of finding teams willing to give up anywhere close to the type of price you should be able to command and get for somebody like Antonio Brown. But from the Steelers standpoint, if you get rid of Antonio Brown, it could change the dynamics of that offense. It could change the dynamics of that locker room, and not necessarily for the negative either. The time has come. That whole killer bees, 3-headed monster won you jack squat with Big Ben, Bell, and Brown. Bell, he gone. And Ben, unless he retires, you can't get rid of him. So there's only one B to show the door. The Steelers got to do it. It's risky, and it could ultimately backfire. But the one thing we know for certain is right now, the status quo ain't working either. So it's time to shake shit up and see if they can change their trajectory.